Genius is only one level above madness. Man is condemned to be free. Are human beings truly equal? From the very beginning of Class from the Elite and at the beginning of each episode, a thought-provoking piece of philosophy or question finds its way to live in your head rent-free every time you think of the show, sometimes presented by the mad lad Kiyotaka Aonokoji himself. Often perceived as a sociopathic genius of the anime sphere, Aonokoji's thought process behind every action he takes, every step of his plans, always finds a way to intrigue me, to the point where I've become convinced that one of the greatest levels of intelligence lies behind those lifeless, unimpressed eyes. And with Season 2 rolling just around the corner as of recent, now would be a good time to brush up and answer the question some of you may be thinking: who in the fuck is Aonokoji? Class from the Elite primarily follows the events of the Advanced Nurturing High School, an institution boasting a 100% employment and college acceptance rate, as listed by the Wikipedia page, through the eyes of Kiyotaka Aonokoji, who I can only describe as a unique entity at best, being socially awkward and claiming he's not particularly good or bad at anything, which in itself is a blatant lie he's extremely good at keeping up. So when he first ends up interacting with Horikita Suzune, who's equally as intriguing, nothing seems too out of the ordinary. Though before I get any further into that, I want to explain why this high school they're attending is unique, to say the least. The Advanced Nurturing High School is one that basically functions as its own mini-society of elites, dictated by a system known only as the S system. Through this, everything, and I mean everything, functions off a point system. There are two major things you need to know about this. First off, each year of students is split off into 4 classes: Class A, B, C, and D, and which class you rank in is based off of what are called class points, a collective value based on students' behavior, grades, ability, etc., which essentially determines how valuable a collective class is. Class points also determine how many personal points each student is allotted every month, with personal points functioning as the de facto currency of the facility, each point being worth 1 yen. For example, Class A with 940 class points ranks higher than Class B with 650 class points, hence why they're in Class A. From this, Class A would be awarded 94,000 personal points, or 94,000 yen a month. Following along so far? Good. Cause I'm fucking not. However, through some crazy exceptional means, the Class D Aonokoji finds himself in is the first to ever drop to 0 class points in the first month, which is impressive in a way, but also means that the school system effectively deemed Class D garbage, defective to a fault and worth absolutely nothing. It is with this realization that everyone in Class D, including Aonokoji and Horikita, come to know just the kind of hellhole they've landed in. With contact outside of the expansive school campus limited and the school itself filled with students that are far from ordinary, the real trials begin. And this, my friends, is where Kiyotaka's story truly begins. At least, that's what I'd like to say, but the pacing of the first season is actually quite clever, utilizing the first half of the season to let other characters who bear a certain level of importance time to shine. Some examples being the prior mentioned Horikita Suzune, whose stern behavior is dictated by her desire to be recognized by her older brother, who is also the student council president, Kushida Kikyo, a rather bubbly character who has a terrifying split personality, Honami Ichinose, who's honestly the most normal character in the entire show, etc. It's one of those series that has a lot of characters that contribute to the story, yet take the time and care to give every single one of them depth, and I've never once thought that any character was lacking development in the story, something that seems to be increasingly more rare as time goes on. So, having that in mind, you'd expect that, yeah, Aonokoji probably has some similar level of contribution to the overall story, with his involvement being fairly balanced, right? No. Absolutely fucking not. They need to nerf this man right in the ground. I can't possibly put into words how thorough and elaborate this man's planning is. Even when things don't quite go the way they should, he makes up for it with convincing logic and persuasion, and should the situation call for it, physical ability, as he's shown to be highly agile and have equally high reflexes. So why would he go through so much effort to make all this information unknown? What purpose is there to manipulating the situation from the shadows? There's a quote I want to take from the beginning of episode 2 to explain this. It takes great talent and skill to conceal one's talent and skill. Simply put, this describes Aonokoji's motives for hiding his abilities to a T. If even one person notices that you're highly skilled and knowledgeable in a variety of things, it's bound to attract a lot of attention, and that attention would no doubt eventually come back to bite you. Aonokoji's well aware of this fact, and thus makes great strides to let other people take credit for his feats, rig his own test scores, and the like, all for the sake of being able to look at the developing situation from outside the box and make his move without making himself a target. It's precisely for this reason that he can plan in the way that he does. By letting people like Horikita and Kushida take the credit for his actions, he pins the target onto them, and by analyzing the behaviors of the people around him, as well as the behavior of his enemies, something he's proven to be very good at, he can twist whatever game the school throws at Class D in his favor. As for who would pose a threat enough that he'd have to take such actions, 3 figures stand out the most. First of all, there's Ryuin from Class C, who essentially runs the class hierarchy like a dictatorship and does what he wants, making him somewhat of a problem for not just Class D, but for the other classes as well. The other two being Sakayanagi and Katsuragi of Class A, who are both highly intelligent and have a class split into their 2 factions. That's not the only reason Ayanokoji hides his abilities. After all, there comes a point where Class D's homeroom teacher, Chabashira Sai, who also has a fair level of involvement in the overall story, reminisces to herself that the most defective student in Class D is Kiyotaka Ayanokoji due to the fact that he hides his skills. In a way, this makes sense, since it doesn't matter what you're good at if you decide to not use that skill. All that said, that doesn't mean people don't know what he's capable of, at least to some extent. While no one outside Class D has much of a clue, Horikita has a good sense of how intelligent he is, as well as how deceptive he can be, and from the looks of it, there are a few others who recognize that he's at least good at picking up on things. For you light novel readers, I'm not going further than that since the anime isn't exactly caught up. Sorry, not sorry. That said, I do want to clarify something real quick, and that is the idea that Ayanokoji is a bona fide sociopath, which is simply not true. Let me explain. While he does have a rather cold personality and doesn't seem to care too much about the people around him, he doesn't tend to break social norms or act on impulse, and is shown to have some level of moral compass when it comes to people being harassed and exploited. In fact, for someone who's often related to a sociopath, Ayanokoji is extremely patient, and just tends to balance his morals with said patience, waiting for the right opportunity to intervene in a situation in a way that would best suit his goals. Something that most people don't consider, or don't have the resolve to stand by and watch. Don't get me wrong, his methods can get a little messed up, but most of the things he does are within the rules and social norms of his class. But who knows, with him being forced to take a stab at reaching Class A, anything could happen. Question is, will he start to get over his past of isolation and be more open with what he's thinking, or will things swing the other way, with someone provoking him to an extreme he can't ignore? I guess you'll have to watch the series for yourself if you want to find out. In the very least, there's one thing to take away from this. Not just about Ayanokoji, but something anyone can apply to their daily life. Everyone has an inner monster, and whether that monster is insignificantly small or terrifyingly large, chances are, you'll wish you never asked.